On Tuesday, October 17th, 1989, at 5:04 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, there was literally a whole lot of shaking going on. Certain areas of the country and of the world are places that are known to be bastions for certain natural disasters. The state of Florida has hurricane season. The Northeast and even the Midwest have blizzards full of snow flurries. The Pacific Northwest has a lot of rain and people with seasonal affective disorder. The state of California, we're known for getting earthquakes. All along California is the fault line known as the San Andreas Fault. I happen to live not too far from the fault line, about 20 miles east of Hollister and San Juan Bautista, where the fault line runs through. On October 17th, 1989 at 5:04 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, the fault line shifted near the Loma Prieta Mountains in Santa Cruz, causing an earthquake that measured 6.9 on the Richter scale. It caused a lot of damage and postponed the 1989 World Series for 10 days. I was 12 years old and a latchkey kid getting ready for Game 3 of the World Series myself, along with a lot of baseball fans in the Bay Area, because the A's and Giants were in the World Series. The Bay Bridge Series. Giants were coming home to Candlestick Park down 2-0 to the defending American League champion Oakland A's. I came home, I had the house all to myself until my mom got home from work between the hours of 5 and maybe 5:30. She worked in Hollister. So like a lot of you, I was getting ready for the game. You were probably sitting at your own home. You're probably at a friend's house. You're at a bar or even at Candlestick Park yourself getting ready for the game. After the quake hit us, we experienced 17 aftershocks between October 18th, 1989 to March 24th of 1991. While many occurred right after the Loma Prieta quake, 5 of those aftershocks happened on April 18th, 1990 in a 2-hour span in the morning. The aftershocks weren't too bad all things considered. They were measuring between 4.0 to possibly 5.5 on the Richter scale. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, I'd like to take you on a tour of my home, how it was and what happened. Okay, so I'm sitting in the same exact room as I was in 1989 when this telecast was happening. So I'm going to show you exactly at the point when the TV cut out and I felt the impact. Oh, nice throw. And that's when the TV flashed off, and that's when I felt the building shake. One thing that needs to be kept in mind. The epicenter of the Loma Prieta earthquake happened in Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is about 35 miles from where I live. It takes me about 35 to 45 minutes to get there by car. So immediately around that point of the telecast, I would feel the impact. San Francisco is about 75 miles from where I live. It takes me a little over an hour to get there if I were going to a Giants game at Oracle Park. So now I'm about to show you when they felt the earthquake at Candlestick Park. And you should note that the delay was because of the ripple effect. The seismic waves hadn't reached them yet. So I'm going to continue the telecast and you will know at the exact point when Al Michaels and Tim McCarver felt the earthquake.
Andy Maldonado with the hesitation, allowing Jose Canseco to score, and he fails to get Dave Parker at second base, so the Oakland A's take.
And I'm sure everybody watching across the rest of the United States saw that on their television screen. And now I'm going to tell you what was happening while the world was shaking and what happened in the aftermath. What, you thought I was going to leave you hanging like this? I'm telling a story here. Now, when the shaking happened, the TV goes out and I feel the house just completely just shake. I thought at first, and this was my first thought after 3 seconds, that it registered in my head we were having an earthquake. I thought for a moment my mom had probably the worst day of her life at the office, got home early to blow off some steam, and she got these superhuman powers and took it out of the house and just shook the hell out of it. As I said, 3 seconds later, it registered in my head that we were having an earthquake. I start from here and I'm running. I was sitting on the floor at the time the house started shaking. I tried to make a run for it. How I got over the step while the house is shaking, your guess is as good as mine. But trying to run during an earthquake, if many of you have tried that before, I don't recommend it. It feels like you're running on a whole bunch of beds. Eventually, the impact is going to get you to wobble and fall down. And that's what happened. So the place that I'm standing right around here is when I fell to the ground and I had to start crawling out. A little something happened before I bolted out of the house, where this cabinet right here fell on top of me as I was on the floor. Now, it didn't hurt me. I didn't suffer a broken back or I wasn't severely injured. It was so light enough it fell on top of me, and I think I broke its fall. One of the window panes was damaged when it fell on me, but I don't think it hurt me that much, but I was able to get it off me, run out the door, and out in open safety. And for the next hour or so, while I was waiting for my mom to come home, I was outside. Now I'm going to take you around my house and show you the aftermath. I'm going to try and describe it to the best of my ability. It's been 30 years, and this house went under a severe remodel in 2002. And we'll start in here. Now, this was my mom's knickknack room. It's now the tree room, sitting room, Christmas tree room. There's a coffee table, and it was still there in '89, but it was in the middle of the room. Where this couch was a curio cabinet full of knickknacks and music boxes. This thing came toppling over, and it crashed against the coffee table, and the glass was actually the cabinet was completely destroyed. On this side, and we still have it, my mom keeps it in her little shed by her house, was another cabinet full of knickknacks. The damage really in this room was just a whole lot of broken antiques. This is now my daughter's room. This was my sleeping room because I was an only child and it was just me and my mom living here, so I had the luxury of 2 rooms. Not much here. I think some pictures fell off the wall and maybe a few things fell off the shelves in my closet. But the closet was fine, nothing was broken, and that's pretty much it. No severe damage here. This is my mom's room, now it's our room, but nothing severely happened. There was an old cabinet here, very antique cabinet. My in-laws have it now. I think nothing fell. There was an old kerosene lamp that was sitting on one of the shelves, and thankfully it didn't fall off and break or anything spilled. Same with here. They didn't have a medicine cabinet, just a mirror, so that was intact. There was a dresser in this corner here, and luckily the TV didn't fall off of it because on the top of this dresser, my mom had a big 19-inch color TV on it. Wasn't too severe in here. Sure, you're familiar with this room, the King's Den. This was known as my playroom. This was where I would just goof around here and play my Sega. But nothing severe happened. There was a dresser in this corner here, and it fell over, but that was nothing. I could pick that up and just go through all the toys. I don't think anything fell in the closets either. So as I said, not much of an impact here. Okay, this one got, I wouldn't say a little damage, but there was quite of a mess to clean up. Now this was the game room before this is Abby's playroom now, but we all call it the key room. This was the game room, and it had the dartboard. I just did a paint job on it a couple of years ago. But in this carpet area was a pool table, and I think one of the glass bases was damaged after the shaking. It was made of glass, so I'm not surprised. Over here though, and this is where my kids' toys is now, it was a bar area. We kept this part of it for storage, but over here was the other side of the bar, and there were a lot of glasses here. And luckily nothing spilled because I think we had a couple bottles of liquor somewhere, but luckily it didn't break. But there was a lot of glasses that did fall over, and we did have to clean that up. The living room, I'll show you a few things, but these cabinets definitely weren't there. This was all made of brick, and luckily the fireplace didn't collapse. A lot of people weren't as fortunate, and some of their fireplaces collapsed because of the masonry and the ages of these houses. These houses were built in the 70s, so you're talking almost 30 years of life, and some of those wear out. But nothing happened, nothing severe happened here, nothing broke. It was just me getting up and scared half to death. This is the dining room, and I'll show you a picture of what it looked like, I'd say a couple years after the quake, but this wasn't, this had like bars on it. This was cleared out during the 2002 remodel. These cabinets were not there. It was blank space for the most part. There was a little table there that held stuff, but for the most part, none of this was there in 1989. Therefore, this room, not much. Now the kitchen, on the other hand, that was a whole different story. As I said, for the record, remodel happened in 2002. None of this was here yet, but I'll show you what was there. When they did the 2002 remodel, they didn't scrap these cabinets. This one overhung the kitchen counter, as you saw in there, and this and everything falling out of these cabinets, and it was a miracle that these didn't fall off the ceiling after the impact. But these things made a huge mess. It was probably the messiest room in the house after the earthquake. Even that counter we kept for garage storage. So we didn't scrap it, we just kept it, but these things, boy, did they make a mess. And in 1989, none of this was here. In fact, the lawn was a little smaller, and there was, believe it or not, a deck and a pool. And luckily none of those got severely damaged in the earthquake. Maybe the pool splashed a little bit, but as far as I'm concerned, nothing severe. In fact, the pool is kind of our saving grace. It provided a source of water. The Loma Prieta quake changed my life forever. It made me develop a fear of earthquakes. But I live out here in California, and earthquakes are normal in California. I always liken earthquakes to the second coming of Christ. We don't know when it's coming, but it's coming. 10 days after the quake, the World Series resumed, and the A's completed their sweep of the Giants. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this. For all the conspiracy theorists who think sports are rigged, you kind of wonder if this was preordained to save some lives. Only 65 people were killed in the massive quake, with 42 in the collapse of the Cypress Freeway near Oakland. If it was the Cubs and Blue Jays, or even the A's and Cubs, because the National League hosted games 3, 4, and 5, in an odd number year at that point. Had it not been for the A's and Giants in the World Series, many more lives would have been lost. Fortunately, people were already at home. They were already at some kind of hangout getting ready to watch the game, at their house, at their friend's house, or even taking that trip to Candlestick Park. Had it not been for the A's and Giants in the World Series, many more people would have been on a rush hour commute on the Bay Bridge. 5 o'clock is usually rush hour traffic. In fact, 3 o'clock in the Silicon Valley is considered rush hour traffic these days. But had it not been for the Giants and A's in the World Series, more cars would have been on the road. More cars would have been on the Bay Bridge. More cars would have been on the Cypress Freeway in Oakland. More lives would have been lost. Thankfully, because of these baseball matches, a lot of damage was caused, some lives were lost, and my fear went sky high. And now I close with this. We all should be prepared for it, every one of us, because we never know when it's going to hit. It could hit at 5:04 p.m. one day, or it could happen in the morning, like those 5 aftershocks in 1990. Or it could happen around 10 o'clock at night during Game 6 of the 2002 Stanley Cup playoffs, while in the meanwhile I was on the phone with my future wife as friends. Thanks for watching this special story time video, and may you have a wonderful day.